Ever heard the phrase stay away from League of Legends or stay away from Valorant? Well, it's kind of true, stay away from these games. Riot thrives in terms of somehow making games that all appeal to sick individuals. Of course, not everyone who plays them are, a sick individual, but the sheer amount is really mind-boggling.
For every kill you get, I'll meow for you.
Alright, bet.
You better try hard.
I'll do my best for you.
Meow.
With that said, we need to put more attention on another company with very unhealthy approach towards players, and yet that have a lot of fans at the same time. A company that can go a single game without somehow collecting a lot of defensive and hateful people at the same time. A company that would rather spit in the faces of people who play and promote their games and then literally cry about it publicly at the same time. HoYoverse is all that and more, and that's why in today's video I will explain why over time, as someone who used to play their games and spend money on them, I started to doubt myself if their products are really worth my time, effort and money. But before we start, I just want to mention that I made a video saying that Genshin is not that bad, speaking of what I think is good about it. With that said, this video will not be defending this game whatsoever, not only because after some research I realized that it's not worth it, but also not deserved at all. First of all, before the big boy dramas, here are some small things that make me twist in pain from their biggest titles. I'll try to comment on as many little things in a little time because they are not as bad as what's coming up later, so buckle up. The game doesn't store the resin in its version of energy for no reason. Star Rail does that, Zenless does that, their biggest competitor Wuthering Waves does that, it's just BS at this point. The exploration tools such as grappling hooks that are for free and easily accessible at all time in Wuthering Waves are locked behind characters, and most of them, if not all, require additional constellations to really be meaningful, which in total results in over $2,000. The entire TCG game mode is just RNG, a very bad game of RNG because of the element dice, aka you pray to the gods that the game will even allow you to play the game, which is stupid. The storytelling is filled with unnecessary garbage like worthless NPCs that will waste your time or dialogues that are twice as long as they should be. The game is missing tools to help with chests and the Archon statue's crystals. You have to use the interactive map, which isn't terrible, but still feels like a bandage for the wound and not a real fix. In Wuthering Waves, the game tells you what you are missing in what region, but Genshin does not. Go figure. The game is not very generous. Plain and simple problem, you will be struggling to get a new character and weapon for them. There is not enough banners compared to how many characters they are. They have tons and tons of 5 stars, and yet if you want a specific one, go and wait for an ungodly amount of time. The events are not saved, so you can't play any of them if you miss them, and so on. These are the ones that I don't like the most, so I mentioned them and so I will with the other two, so let's continue. The same problem with Genshin in terms of storytelling. The game loves to waste your time, just loves to do that and not to get to the fucking point. It gets so bad that you can be listening to people yap for over 2 hours if you want to progress through the story. The fights are way too simple, let's be real, there are 2, not 3, 2 moves for each character. Some have to use their skill all the time, others have to use the regular attack all the time and barely ever interchange them. Just spam one of those. For example, using the regular attack with fake Shao, not counting the ult because there is an actual purpose there, it's just not what you're supposed to do ever. You need to be using the skill for the passive and just ignore the regular attack, which just deletes the purpose of the normal attack even existing for her at all. The game feels like garbage if you're playing the new content without the brand new characters. The enemies, just like many HoYo games, are just damage sponges, aka you can't defeat them without the newest broken character because of the sheer amount of HP they possess. The autoplay button sounds like a joke, yet it isn't. How the fuck is it a function that turns a turn-based strategy game into a visual novel with character building and gambling supposed to be fun? I don't know. I've got nothing. The exploring feels like a bootleg version of Genshin because a lot of the time it just boils down to a simple puzzle. They should have honestly just skipped that part of the game. They did that in ZZZ, but here it's just forced. Fun sometimes, sure, but mostly forced. The meta is always about a certain type of characters. There was ignoring enemies' weaknesses, there were follow-ups, now I believe there's a summoner meta. No room for diversity really, if you want to be considered a top tier player and clear the endgame. Power creep is again somehow even worse in Star Rail despite this game being much newer. The best ice DPS became the most useless character when Miyabi came out. Incomparable difference here. The team building in every HoYo game just comes down to the main DPS 90% of the time, but here it's even worse. It feels like the 10% that was left before is just gone in every single team. It's just one character. Miyabi with Sokaku and NB, just use Miyabi. She's so OP, she doesn't need no support or stans. Zuyan with NB and Nicole, just beat everyone using Zuyan. She doesn't need the buffs from Nicole and stans from NB. The world is boring, everything is just a city with one exception, the desert. The story is arguably the worst of the big three HoYo games, at least the storytelling is better. Over-sexualized. No, really, very, very over-sexualized. The fan service is fine, but here is just ew. No, seriously, what the fuck is this? Basically, every gacha has fan service, but what the fuck were they thinking? I even inserted 4 fucking question marks in the script. This is so disgusting. The bamboos might be free to get, but still just another step in building a team. It will take time to max out, and building actual characters already takes a lot of time, so yeah. Now with the overall somehow small bad things covered, let's get into big problems. Now obviously, I don't want you to think that I'm talking about everyone, and just because you're playing any game that HoYo made means I will shit on you here. There are people who need to hear what I am about to say, but that doesn't mean everyone is just a jackass and needs to be educated or whatever. The community has 3 types of people. The regular people who just play the game and criticize the stuff they don't like, but also say what they like out loud. The people called sometimes horseshoes that will glaze no matter what they devs drop. And the people who will hate on literally everything no matter what. They'll also do apparently everything but quit the game for some reason. And unfortunately, the first type of people is not only small but also not very vocal all the time, it seems. Which means that when you interact with someone who plays a game made by HoYo, you have a big chance that they will either complain about literally everything you mention or glazed everything. Mostly glazed, it seems like it's the majority, or either they're very vocal about loving this billion-dollar company. Next thing, the Nerumeru incident. Nerumeru is a big Japanese streamer that plays gacha games, mostly from HoYo. He was big enough that he became a HoYo content creator, but then he had 2 somewhat small dramas that were big enough for HoYo apparently that they just started to spit in his face. First of all, he didn't know that HoYo doesn't like leaks, so before they said that, he had a Discord server, and on that Discord server he had a channel, and the entire purpose of it was to, well, talk about leaks and just have a discussion over there. Afterwards, HoYo contacted him and became finally vocal about not liking when creators expose leaks, so he no longer did that. However, he didn't delete the chat on Discord, which was apparently still good enough for HoYo to make a fuss about it. This is such a non-issue. And second of all, he played Wuthering Waves. That's it.
Es picante.
Y nos fuimos.
That's the second drama. After that, HoYo started to treat him differently and stopped inviting him to events, for example. I might have mixed something up, but overall, yeah, they are very much not a fan when someone is playing their competitor's game. Now, the big thing of this video, interacting in any way with HoYo's games, content creators, obviously not all, and fans, also not all, and so on, will most likely not be worth it. Games are rather shallow, looking good, but there's no real game there, if you know what I mean. Content creators don't say anything meaningful a lot of the time. When it's a trend to yell at Kuro and complain about Wuthering Waves, they were doing that. When Glazing Natlan was needed to save HoYo's ass, they didn't, so on. On the same note, huge shout out to people like Glaive and Tectone or Saint Tontas, sorry if I can't spell your name, that were willing to criticize when it's needed and give reasons why, as well as respect the gachas that deserve the respect. In terms of HoYo fans, a lot of them are never willing to change. Unfortunately, they will either complain a lot of the time or not understand that when HoYo's competitors do well, Genshin, Zenless and other games from HoYo will also get better, so they can compete as much as they can. If you like Genshin, be happy that Wuthering Waves is great. It will over time help Genshin and other HoYo games. Okay, but why is the title "Don't Interact with HoYoverse"? Like it's a disease or something? Well, because the current environment is really bad. The outline in Genshin was, well, a flop. Honkar Starrel has insane power creep issues that pisses off players. Zenless all that means that if you're new to, well, HoYoverse overall, no matter if you play Genshin, Starrel or really any game, you would just be better playing another gacha game. Any game, to be perfectly honest with you. But TLDR, let's be real, gachas are investments. They are beautiful, fun and have infinite potential, so there's nothing wrong in playing them, but choosing the ones that would respect you more and without a community so oriented on hating or glazing would just be worth your time more. Now, obviously, if you have already played or really want to play something from HoYo, that's okay. You don't have to agree with my criticism of the game mechanics, you don't have to watch the problematic content creators, you don't have to interact with the community at all. But on the other hand, isn't playing a game that is known for having great mechanics, having great content creators, and friendly communities just more fun? I'll let you figure out the answer, but for now, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, leave a comment so I know what you think, and see ya.